survey team. Next up, I'm going to toss it over to Catherine and the rest of Group 2 to discuss the history of the World Games. Take it away, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Taylor. And thank you, Benita, Carla, and Rashida. Congratulations on your beautiful presentation. My name is Catherine Brown, and I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you for joining Innovate Birmingham's Cohort 16 Demo Day. Now we've had an opportunity to learn about the community's awareness of the World Games. Let's take a moment to explore the history of the World Games. Here you can see a map representing World Games host countries. You'll notice a variety of countries have welcomed the Games. Germany is the only country that has had the honor of hosting the World Games 2 times, in 1989 and in 2005. This year will actually be the first time since 1981 that the World Games returns to a US host city. The World Games are an Olympic-style offshoot hosted every 4 years since the first Games were held in Santa Clara, California back in 1981. While we're all familiar with the type of sports we usually see represented at the Olympics, you may be surprised by some of the athletic disciplines represented at the World Games. Football, tug of war, life-saving, canoe polo, sumo wrestling are just a few of the more unusual sports you can expect to see this summer. In addition to exciting sporting disciplines, this summer Birmingham is set to welcome over 100 countries from around the world to the Magic City for the World Games. Before we go any further, I think it's important that we discuss how we actually acquired our data. While the World Games official website offers a wealth of information, the formatting of the website made processing the data a bit of a challenge. Luckily, our group member Elijah Benjamin stepped up to the task and utilized Python in order to scrape the World Games website and build our data set. Once we had that, we were off to the races, so to speak. Using the data we acquired from the World Game website, we intend to delve into the history of the World Games with you. We assume that host city profiles will show commonalities in size and interesting diversity in climate. We believe that the data will show growth in sports and countries represented at the Games, and we believe that analyzing the performance data can show interesting outliners and medal predictions. We may have also uncovered some rather curious rivalries for you to learn about later. I'd like to now take an opportunity to pass things off to Pierce Bobo, who'll be discussing profiles of previous host cities. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. My name is Pierce Bobo, and I will be discussing the city profiling and statistics of the past World Games. I will begin by reviewing the host city's population. While researching the population of each host city, we noticed a trend. It appears that organizers of the World Games favor small-sized cities. Unlike the Olympics, which tends to seek out larger, more populated cities, it appears the World Games takes a slightly different approach by choosing less populated cities. There are a few exceptions, such as London, as indicated by the graph below. However, the trend of promoting smaller cities seems to be consistent. We believe that organizers do this to help bring revenue and attention to these smaller cities. Speaking of attention, I will now discuss media coverage, viewing history, and attendance of the Games. According to the chart on the left, there has been a consistent growth in attendees. As the overall knowledge of the event grows, so does attendance. With the exception of Cali, Colombia, the World Games has experienced a steady growth of viewers. Increased media coverage can help promote the Games and encourage viewers to attend the Games in person. As the data shows in the chart on the right, the overall number of media representation depends on the host city. There is a direct correlation between attendance and media coverage. The fewer the guests in attendance, the lower the media coverage. Aside from media coverage, there are other factors that determine attendance and turnout. Surprisingly, climate may have an effect. Let's discuss the climate of the host cities. As you can see on the chart, we included both the months of July and August. This is because the World Games occurred during the summer due to the specific events featured. To keep our data consistent, we plotted the average high and low temperature for each host city. The climate has been proven to be consistent. This may be a leading factor in the attraction of attending the World Games in person. People normally enjoy the summer weather. There's more sun, cold drinks, and generally a happier atmosphere. More people vacation in the summer and take time to travel and attend the Games. This also invites an increase in revenue as visitors to the city frequently stop by retail and dining establishments. While the growth of media, people's attendance, and vendors, we can see exactly where the growth in revenue is coming from. This then shows that if the organizers are picking smaller cities to host the Games to increase that city's revenue and income, they have been successful and will most likely continue to be. And now I'll pass it on to Lawrence to continue the history in the World Games.
Thank you, Pierce. Hi, I'm Lawrence Smith, and factors that may have influenced their awareness through the years. And so the first slide here on the number of participating countries. We see that in 1981, it starts out with 58 countries attending in Santa Clara, California, and all the way to 2017. There's 111 countries that are participating in the World Club Poland Games. And then, so this year in 2022, in Birmingham, Alabama, there are 100 plus countries that are going to be participating. And here's a graphical representation of the participating countries. So we see goes all the way from 58 to 111, and that's roughly a 48% increase through the years. And next we have increase in credentialed media. So from 1981, there was 300 or so credentialed media. The high point one in Japan, 998. And this year we have 1,000 plus credentialed media who are scheduled to attend the games. So here we see the changes in media attendance in the World Games through the years. And you notice how through that start of the 2000s, you see an exponential increase in attendance from both media and spectators. And on to the next slide. So for key media developments that we see, so in 1994, we have the HTML language that was introduced to the world. And the 2000s, we have Facebook, basically the advent of the internet, which came along and essentially made the world a smaller place. So with social media and other sources of communication, the knowledge of the World Games has grown. And so for Birmingham, they're anticipating about 500,000 or so anticipated to visit the city. And we expect that to be, so you can assume that every person has a smartphone. They're going to be connected to their social media accounts, Snapchatting, and basically building a huge data set of images and social media posts about their experiences here in the Magic City. These factors together, we believe is going to provide a major social media impact with all eyes on the Magic City. Thank you for listening to my section, and we're going to turn over to the famous Elijah Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. My name is Elisha Benjamin, and I'm excited to share with you some fun points that jumped out at me when I was looking through the medal history of the World Games. Now, before we dive in and talk about the fun, interesting data that I just got you all excited about, I'd like to take a moment to talk about what didn't make it into the presentation. Originally, my portion of the presentation was going to be a lot more dry, maybe a little less exciting. I put a lot of time and effort into attempting to create a regression model to examine if there was a correlation between the distance people had to travel and how many medals they won for their country. Unfortunately, for all of us, my eyes were a little bit too big for my stomach in this case, and despite getting feedback from a statistician from Sandra University, I simply didn't have the time to have it ready to present today. While I am disappointed to not have it ready to present, I'm very grateful for the experience that I had from going through that process. And with that out of the way, it's time to get to the good stuff. So this is a representation of the running total of medals won by countries in the World Games. The United States starts with a commanding lead, winning 99 medals in the first games in 1981, almost a third of all medals awarded that year. And we're off to the races. Italy quickly gains ground over the next few years, but the United States successfully holds off their assault until they finally push ahead in 2009. The United States continues to fall further behind, with Germany catching up and passing us, and Russia, despite competing in 3 less editions of the games, is now hot on our tails. Now I'd like to take a very brief look, at a few sports that have been dominated by a particular country. First up, we have women's sumo. Russia, represented by the dark blue in the top chart, won 58% of medals in the heavyweight category, 50% in the open weight category, and 35% overall. Russia's absence from the games this year will certainly be felt, and the 3 countries that stand to gain the most are Ukraine, Japan, and Poland. Next up, we have karate, dominated by Japan. You can see in the top chart that Japan has won the bulk of their medals in karate, over 3 times as many as their next best sport, sumo. When comparing to other countries, they have almost twice as many total medals as the next country and more gold medals than the next 2 countries combined. Here we have what appears to be a simple, unassuming, maybe a little bit lumpy circle. You'd be forgiven for thinking that there's not much else to say about it. However, there's more to this circle than initially meets the eye, because this isn't just a circle. It's actually a pie chart showing the percentage of gold medals in korfball that have been won by the Netherlands. It's all of them. They've won every single gold medal in korfball since the sport was introduced to the games in 1985. They invented the sport, they perfected the sport, we're all fighting for second place. I'd like to take a look at one more thing before we end our presentation, and that's a bit of a rivalry between the United States and Italy in the roller sports category. These twin titans of roller sports combine for over 40% of total medals won in the sport and over half of all gold medals. So let's take a look at how this rivalry has played out through the years. The trend here mimics the overall trend we saw back on the first slide. The US had a strong start, but over the last 2 decades, Italy has steadily eaten into our lead before overtaking us in the last games in 2017. The numbers I really want you to take away from this slide are on the left. When I said twin titans, I really meant it. After 41 years, they're in a dead heat, tied at exactly 43 gold medals apiece. After 41 years, only 4 medals separate Italy and the United States. While the trend over the last few years hasn't been in our favor, with the games coming back to the United States for the first time since 1981, could this be the year that things turn around? And we'll leave you with that for today. Hopefully, we've given you a greater appreciation and understanding of how the World Games has grown and developed over the years, and maybe even given you something to watch out for when the games come to Birmingham later this year. Thank you very much. Back to you, Taylor.